Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding. We are just a little over a week out from the 2024 New York Pro, and based on everything we know, this is going to be a true New York Pro. For a couple of years, I'm going to be honest here, the New York Pro lineups have been shaky, especially considering that this is technically supposed to be the third biggest show of the year, only followed by the Arnold Classic and the Mr. Olympia contest. But this year we have something special brewing. We have two 12 crossovers to the open division at this show. We're going to have multiple Olympians doing this show, including a top 3 Olympian and a few young guns to mix it up. And that's just for the open division, mind you. Just as a side note, the 212 men's physique and classic physique divisions seem to have some great names competing in all of them. So with such a great show upcoming, I decided we needed a little mini series. So I'd like to welcome you to my Road to the New York Pro series. I'm going to have a couple of comparisons for you and cap this series off with my predictions for this show. And in this first episode, we have what could very well be the top 2 in the open division for this show. We of course have the heavy favorite to win the show, and I do mean heavy favorite, Nick Walker. He doesn't really need an introduction. But in today's video, he will be going up against a 212 competitor who is making his second appearance in the open division, Angel Calderon Frias. Now, like I said, everyone knows Nick Walker. We know he's coming back after an injury and after a year away from the stage. And let's be honest, he's probably going to win the New York Pro. But I do think Angel could be a dark horse here. Angel is a lot like Nick Walker. For one, last time Nick was on the Olympia stage, he placed 3rd, like Angel did, but in the 212 division last year. So they're counterparts in that aspect. And they're both similar physique-wise. They both don't have the greatest shape, they have interesting builds, but they're very freaky and are mass monsters for their respective divisions. And Angel's also no stranger to the open division, mind you. In 2021, he literally won an open show, the Big Man Pro. And of course, he has a very decorated 212 career. So I do think there's actually a scenario where these two have one of the better matchups of the entire show. Like I said, I think Nick Walker is the heavy favorite, but there really isn't a clear favorite for second. A lot of people are talking about Tonio versus Nick and some other names like Quint Beastwood and Martin Fitzwater, but I think Angel has the potential to be extremely competitive here. But there's only one way to find out, so let's jump into today's video. In this video, we will be comparing Angel Calderon Frias from the 2023 Mr. Olympia and Nick Walker from the 2023 Arnold Classic. And I know these seem like interesting versions to use, but hear me out. For Nick Walker, both of his most recent versions are clearly outdated. Have you seen this dude's updates? Not even the 2022 Mr. Olympia version is going to be accurate to how he eventually looks on the New York Pro stage. Now, this may even be less accurate, but I still wanted to use the 2023 Arnold Classic version of Nick simply to make this comparison more interesting. Angel is a 212 guy, and Nick is a mass monster, but Nick Walker was lighter and just straight up smaller at the 2023 Arnold, so I'm tapping that version for this comparison. And yes, for Angel, we are using a 212 version, not his open version, simply because I think his recent 212 version was better. Even though it's smaller, I think with the conditioning and the thickness, he was overall better at his most recent version. However, if you are asking me his best version, that was probably years ago in 2019, but I still wanted to stay relatively recent, while still using the good version. And keep in mind that open version I mentioned was back in 2021. He has exclusively competed in 212 since then, and did so before then too, so having the open division package be in the middle of a 212 career obviously means that there's not going to be a huge difference between that version and his 212 ones, since of course he stayed close to the 212 parameters. So anyway, I'm using his 2023 212 Olympia version where he placed 3rd. Those are the versions we're using today. Let's go ahead and start episode 1 of the Road to New York Pro series. Like the video, subscribe for more, and let's begin. In the front double, we can really see what I mean by interesting builds. These guys are just a little strange, and it has to do with their lower bodies and their waists. Nick's legs are short compared to his torso, and it throws off his proportions, on top of some lackluster quad sweep. And for Angel, I think his legs are just a little small straight up, and this leaves both guys looking lacking in the lower body. And also, the other thing I want to address here is the size discrepancy. And I assure you guys, I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you. I did a height comparison example before this comparison and put in 5'7" for Nick Walker and 5'4.5" for Angel. And based on this comparison, I still felt that I made Angel a little taller than he is. So don't think I'm trying to make Nick a giant here. But a big reason I think Angel looks so small here is because of the disparity in size. Like guys, let's be honest, there's probably about 40 pounds of difference here between these two individuals. And unfortunately for Angel, it shows. But let's continue and just see how this shakes out. So overall, these guys are a little odd to look at, that's been established. But to me, Angel just really throws me off. Even more than Nick, which definitely says something for sure. I think it's because while Nick's legs are stubby, his upper body isn't super wide, so the proportions aren't that off. Angel's legs are much narrower compared to Nick's in proportion to their upper bodies, because Angel is wider up top. So somehow, some way, Nick's proportions are actually better. And I think body part for body part, he's also better. I definitely have him in the calves, even the quads for the additional size. The midsection for sure is going to Nick, which again, I can't believe I'm saying, and I also have Nick in the lats and of course the arms. So all in all, what does Angel win? Nothing. I think this one is a pretty clear one for Nick. When Nick is winning shape, you know you're done. And with all the other wins and the body parts tallied up, I think this is a resounding enough victory for a 3-point win. I'm just really bugged by Angel's pose. That doesn't help his case, but Nick wins basically everything, so he deserves the biggest margin here. And somehow the front lat spread is again a 3-point win, but this time for Angel. I don't even bother putting up Nick's contest photo for this one because they're hard to find in good quality because he doesn't hit the shot. So I did include a recent shot of Nick to make a point, but this isn't what I'm comparing Angel to. I'm comparing Angel to what I know Nick's front lat spread looks like, and it's awful. And Angel's is honestly okay. I guess because his long arms aren't sticking out here, the legs actually fit his upper body more. They're still a little undersized for my liking, even with the improved balance, but they are very detailed for sure. And up top, his lats are okay, but what really impresses me is all the chest thickness as well as the arm and delt pop. So overall, this is a fairly solid pose, a lot better than the front double was for Angel. And because Nick is notoriously bad here, let's just give Angel a 3-point victory here. But I do need to say, the reason Nick's photo is up here is because he looks improved. This is a recent update and he's improved the shot a lot, both in execution and in the balance between the upper and lower bodies. So I think he has a lot to do in order to beat Angel and a lot of other front lat spreads going into this contest, but I think he's going to be improved enough that he's not dead on arrival in this one. You're only as strong as your weakest link, as they say, and Nick is definitely improving his. Now the side chest is actually a pretty competitive pose, surprisingly. Nick's mass advantage helps him out a lot, but not so much in the pecs. His pecs have always been a little flat actually. And he's definitely bigger than Angel on the scale for sure. But because Angel has a smaller frame, his muscle goes a longer way in making him look a little more filled out. But is it enough? Let's break this one down body part for body part. In the side leg, both guys are good. Angel is honestly close from a size perspective since he has a little more hamstring drop than Nick. But Nick overall has that grainy look to his side leg. He's almost making look Angel watery by comparison. And from the side angle in terms of size, like I said, they're close. So overall, I'd give Nick the slight edge in the lower body. Now in the upper body, starting with the arm, I'd give Nick all of it. Angel gets close with a big delt and his arm is pretty solid, but Nick's limbs are just too much for Angel. He has the superior size. And finally in the pecs, well, I am going to give this area to Angel. As I was alluding to earlier, Nick's pecs look flat. Angel's pecs have a ton of thickness to them actually, and his detail is also superior to Nick's. So for the namesake of the pose, that's going to Angel, and that's why this pose is competitive. Nick looks like a tank and has the overall size and thickness advantage over Angel, but Angel gets a major and honestly a decisive win in the pecs. So to be honest, I think this could probably go to Angel in a few scenarios. This is a pose to watch for sure on the day of the show. But for now, I gotta go with Nick on this one. The pecs are important, but Nick is just too overwhelming everywhere else. Like, just look at these two as a whole. It doesn't even sound right to call Angel the winner. Nick has too much size on Angel for that to happen in my opinion. You can't just win the pecs alone when you get beat clearly everywhere else. But again, that's my view. However, I am heavily limiting Nick's margin here. You can't lose the pecs and expect to do well even if you win overall. So Nick just gets a 1-point victory in the side chest. And when we turn these guys around for the rear double, Nick Walker just runs away with it. This isn't even the best photo of Nick Walker. I just used this one because it was part of the set. But even with this photo, Angel doesn't stand a chance. In the lower body, Angel is solid. He has plenty of glute striations and peeled hams, but I do wish he had some more adductors. And he changed up his posing so he wasn't so wide. There's too much of a gap between his legs, but the overall lower body is still solid. But Nick is just too much. Nick has the bigger quad sweeps, the bigger and much nastier hams, nasty in a good way, and his glutes are sharp too. They don't have the textbook clean striations, but we know Nick is peeled. However, I do have to give Angel the glutes for what it's worth. But not only does Nick win the rest of the lower body, go up and he wins the entire upper body, not just the back. Let's keep this short and sweet. Nick is making Angel's back look one-dimensional. Nick has unmatched density in the lower back and he has the wider, more detailed upper back. And the arms and delts are just crazy as well, but that's Nick Walker for you. I don't think I have to explain that one. This is just a dominant win by Nick, who has one of the best rear doubles in the world currently, so it's really no surprise here. And remember, this is with handicapping Nick with a photo that doesn't show off the true extent of his back. All in all, this is definitely worth a 3-point victory in my mind. There's no way Angel or anyone else is winning this pose against Nick in New York. The Realat Spread is notoriously a weak pose for Nick, especially compared to his other back pose. But to be fair, I think he's already solid, and based on his recent updates, it seems that he's improving the shot a lot as well. I think he does beat Angel in a few things currently, even though Angel is fairly solid here. In the lower body, this is just not close. Angel is shredded, but Nick is shredded too and much more developed everywhere. He can win the lower body on the hamstrings alone. But upstairs is a different story. Angel actually has the better back slightly. He's a little bit wider overall, although Nick has the more pronounced V taper. But Angel has the more pronounced traps and thickness in this pose. So Angel gets a slight win in the back, and the back is the most important piece of the pose for sure. But honestly, with a big win in the lower body, and because he's close to Angel in the back, Nick has the better sum of parts in this one, so I see it as very close. But ultimately, I am going with Nick. I think on a real stage, Nick's advantage in overall muscularity and his bigger structure would help him prevail over Angel. And like I said, he's the more complete one here, with the better showing in both the upper and lower body when we average them together. He has the better V taper too, so I think he has the better X shape from the rear ankle compared to Angel. So overall, I think this is a very close pose. I'm even contemplating now giving this one to Angel, so you can if you want, but for now, I'm giving it to Nick by the slimmest of margins though, just 1 point here. And even if I did give it to Angel, it would still be a 1-point victory but for him. So ultimately, not that impactful. Back to decisive wins, we now have the side tricep, and I bet you can imagine who's winning this one. Now, Angel is good, and yeah, actually going body part for body part, he is pretty solid. The pecs are very full and thick. They're better than Nick's for sure for that reason, which is a big win for Angel, because not only is that just a body part win, but it helps him look thicker against the mutant, and Angel's delt is good too. I see plenty of striations there. Even for the namesake of this pose on Angel, the tricep is solid. If you look closely, he has some feathering in the tricep too, and he has some good overall mass. But one thing that bugs me about this area is he's not quite locked into it. He's not hitting the pose correctly, which is probably a mobility issue. But nonetheless, his arm is still solid despite not holding the pose correctly. Now downstairs, Angel is solid. The side is definitely the best angle for Angel's legs. They don't really look small here, and you can see he is very dry and separated. However, I glossed over an important area here, the midsection. This is Nick Walker's trump card in this pose, and it's Angel's downfall. Angel's abs are not good, and they're placed on top of a big bloated midsection, and that derails the entire pose for him. Especially because Nick Walker is right there to draw the contrast with some of the best washboard abs. And shockingly, the tighter waistline. So even if Angel won every single other area, I just can't give him this pose. And he doesn't, by the way. He's solid everywhere, but he's not winning everywhere. Nick is not just winning the midsection, he also wins the tricep. Even though he's turned away, but come on, we know what Nick's tricep looks like, and it's massive. And Nick also wins the side leg too. The only thing Nick doesn't win are the pecs, and that's just not enough to overturn the pose. This one is going to Nick, and I may sound redundant here, or maybe a bit drastic, but I think this is actually another 3-point win. I don't see a single scenario where Angel overcomes that waist to beat Nick. So sorry not sorry, we have another dominant 3-point win for Nick. And speaking of 3-point wins because of their opponent's fat midsection, we have another one here for Nick Walker. Angel's conditioning is fantastic, we know that at this point, and the legs are solid overall, a little less size, but the detail in them is superb. But again, this pose is derailed by the midsection. His conditioning may be great, but his midsection is so big it's ruining all of his ab separation on top of being an eyesore in and of itself. And this goes back to something I said earlier. When Nick Walker's beating you in shape, it says a lot about your physique. Nick legitimately has the prettier physique in this instance, although that is a relative term. And Nick is clearly winning the midsection thanks to his shape being better and his stomach not being bloated. His abs are also phenomenal, it's no contest there, and again he has the better control over his stomach. Now Angel may even win on the quads here. I do like his sharper detail, I have to be honest. And both Nick and him have poor sweeps, so they're on a level playing field in that department. So Angel may actually take the lower body. I'd be willing to throw him that bone, but there's absolutely no way he's winning this pose. He's losing one of the two namesakes of this pose 10 out of 10 times. And Nick's legs may actually be better based on the size, so there's that. So again, this may seem harsh for Angel for awarding Nick another 3-point win here, but come on, does he have a shot of winning this one? I don't think so. And finally, here in the most muscular, we actually have a halfway competitive pose. I couldn't quite believe it myself, but this is certainly one of the closest poses of the comparison. Nick is still winning though, don't get hasty, but Angel limits his margin by a little. This is mainly because of the chest and shoulders region. By this point, we know that Angel has the better pecs, and we can see that here. They're so much thicker and more detailed than Nick's. Angel gets a solid victory here for those reasons, and that's a big victory to have because it's almost the centerpiece of this pose. Angel also looks very impressive in the arms and delts, but Nick is winning both of those areas because of his size advantage. And going down again, Nick is again winning the midsection by a lot. I don't think I need to go over that again. But in the lower body, this is surprisingly another pose where Angel's legs look less narrow compared to the other poses. And his detail is deeper than Nick's and his overall leg is drier. But again, Nick does have the size advantage here by a little bit. So honestly, I can have either guy winning the lower body, but that probably has to do a little bit with me wanting to be nice to Angel. But then when you zoom out and examine both gentlemen's whole physiques and compare them, Nick gets a big win from just looking more muscular. We can truly see that 30 to 40 pounds difference. Body part to body part, Angel gets close here and there, and he definitely wins the chest and maybe even the lower body, but I don't think that one's going to be a popular opinion. And again, Nick is just too big overall for Angel to win here. But this isn't going to be a 3-point win for Nick. I'm feeling a 2-point win. But I guess if I was really adamant on Angel winning the lower body and I was dying on that hill, I guess I could maybe push this to a 1-point win. But I think the midsection is just too much of a flaw to get that close to Nick, and of course Nick is bigger overall and won his fair share of body parts too. So let's just call it a 2-point win for Nick, but for a 212 guy like Angel, that's arguably a win. Now that the mandatories are done, let's talk about the overall physique categories. Firstly, I want to get conditioning out of the way because this is one of the rare instances where I'm awarding a tie. I think both guys are shredded. Sometimes a guy beat another in a particular muscle group, but I think overall both of these guys are peeled. So I'll give each guy 1 point. This is a rare case though. Now what about muscularity? Well, I think it's pretty obvious the mutant is taking this category, and honestly it was almost a 3-point win. But I think Angel did win a couple of areas throughout these poses. He may have won the back and the rear lat spread, and I think he won the chest in every single pose where it was a factor. So I think this is enough to prevent Nick from getting a 3-point win, even though I honestly think this is kind of pushing it, but we're going to leave Nick's win at 2 points. Now let's go to the shape category, and surprisingly, we have another Nick win. It's the waist. Usually Nick is losing the shape because of his thicker waist, but this time he had the upper hand. Angel's waist was even more of a problem. His legs were also stubby, so those two things together really hurt his balance. So this is another rare instance where Nick Walker's actually the more aesthetic open competitor and wins the shape category. I'm not going to say it's by 3 points because Nick isn't exactly Flex Wheeler, so I don't think it'd be right to award Nick 3 points in the shape category of all things, so we'll keep it at a 2-point win. And in terms of the flaws, Angel has all the same things that Nick has going on, but worse. His legs looked really small in a lot of poses, and his stomach in and of itself was a major flaw. But to be fair, because Nick has a lot of these structural flaws too, he's not exactly in the clear, but his flaws are not as bad as Angel's. However, I wouldn't even call Nick's waist an issue. He keeps it in check for sure, but the stubby legs are definitely a flaw. They just hurt his flow too much. But like I said, Angel's waist was even worse, definitely to the point of being a flaw, and his legs were arguably worse too. So basically, both guys are definitely flawed individuals, but Angel carries the bigger ones. So this will be a 1-point victory for Nick. Alright, so what is the final verdict? Well, before I even reveal the final score, I think we all know how this went, and probably how this is going to go on show day. The mandatories were a blowout. I had Angel winning one pose, the front lat spread, and everyone wins that one against Nick. And look at the margins that Nick won his poses by. I honestly didn't think I would award a lot of 3-point victories, but I was wrong. Angel only got close in 2 shots. And I'm sure there will be comments saying how Angel wasn't even close to Nick and how I'm suffering with retardation. But yeah, maybe I am. Angel did not hold up well at all in the mandatories, nor in the next round. Nick got a nice automatic win in muscularity because he's going up against a 212 guy. And with Angel's big waist, Nick got wins in the shape and flaw sections. These categories would have been a clean sweep for Nick if it wasn't for Angel's good condition. So when you calculate the final scores, we have Nick winning easily with 84.7 points to Angel's 15.3. So yeah, what a letdown. But honestly guys, what I said at the beginning is still kind of true. Like, this may be the closest anyone gets to Nick in New York. Angel is solid all around, and he's a bit of a mass monster in his own way because he's a shorter guy, and that's what he can weigh in 212. And if the judges are looking for someone like Nick Walker in order to beat Nick Walker, Angel does have a fairly good shot. I don't see Tonio having this level of mass, nor Quentin, but they could get close based on shape. I don't really know what the judges will be looking for, and I don't think that's possible either way. And I also don't think Angel beating Nick is possible. Angel is similar to Nick, sure, similar but bigger flaws, and a bit smaller for someone since he's a shorter guy and a 212 guy at that. But also guys, keep in mind we handicapped Nick Walker in this comparison. We used his smallest version in years. So even if Angel gets bigger for the open, which he surely will, at least by a little, Nick was already far ahead in this comparison, and he will also be bigger and more improved in New York. Nick was just too massive and too complete, and honestly even too shapely for Angel to handle in this comparison. If Angel is like Nick Walker but more flawed and smaller, why not just go with Nick? So Nick wins today's comparison, and I do anticipate this outcome to happen on the New York Pro stage. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. What did you guys think of this one? I imagine 99% of us are going to agree on the ultimate outcome with this, but if you truly disagree, leave me a comment down below telling me why. And if you guys like these types of comparison videos and want to see more of the series, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. We have just a week before the New York Pro, so expect almost daily uploads from me until we get there. And then I'll be covering the New York Pro live right on this channel, so make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my future videos and live streams. By the way, if you guys are interested in some high quality supplements to help you on your own bodybuilding journey, look no further than Arms Race Nutrition. Then at checkout, be sure to use my code Project10 for 10% off your entire order. That's code Project10 at armsracenutrition.com. Finally, with all that said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Get Alexia.